All right. Well, hello all. This is Jed and Shari tuning in with you to kind of discuss an interesting way of reading tarot. We've had some discussions previously on Tomberg's book, Meditations on the Tarot. And while these tools can be used for things like divination and fortune telling, what I like to do is I kind of like to look at these as like a spiritual exercise,
Hmm.
right? And so, kind of learning the spiritual story that are in the cards. So I oftentimes will use tarot in my own meditation practice, um, just to immerse myself within kind of that symbolic order of the story that are contained within the cards, because these are
Yeah.
all kind of like archetypal things that are actually
Yeah.
within us.
No,
So
I'm excited. I'm excited actually, Jed, to see how you're doing this. So this is good.
right, so I'll kind of get into it and I'll show each card. I'll kind of show you the spread first, and then I'll stop sharing screen and
Yeah.
we can discuss. But I'll kind of show the spread. So this was what I pulled earlier this evening, or yesterday, last night, and it just was a very significant one. I was like, oh, I got to talk with Shari about this. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Let me go ahead and start my share here. We're going to go into PowerPoint. I'm going to share that. And can you see that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I see it.
Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do is just kind of explain the way I spread the cards out here, so that, and I'm going to actually move this,
Yeah.
hopefully.
The
um,
cursor.
yeah, I'm just moving the moving our, anyway, I'll move this around as needs be.
Okay.
So the way I set up my readings is kind of, I look at these seven candles as kind of the divine family, so in heaven and on earth. So Jesus being the meeting point of the finite and the infinite, of heaven and earth. And so that's kind of where the center candle takes position. And so what I do is I work outward from the center. So to the right, or if you're viewing it to the left, is the Holy Spirit, then Mary, then Archangel Michael, then Saint Jude, then the guardian angel. And then here, depending on how people are looking at it, we've got the Mano Ponderosa, or the mighty hand of God, which is the family of Jesus. So his grandparents, his parents, and then him on the mighty hand. And so this is kind of how heaven and earth are. Whoop, let me go back real quick. You can still see the same cards, but this is how heaven and earth are kind of contending and calling me in my spiritual practice, right? So I'm just kind of paying attention to the story that the cards are telling me, to see like what kind of nuggets of truth are in there, right? So this would be representative on the right hand side, or on your left, of the heavenly family, and this is representative of the earthly family and community, and Jesus is the meeting point of both.
Okay.
And so these cards, there's a story in these top cards which represent that. Now, this second row um, is representative of the seven heavens. So if we start from the edge here, this is seven. So the six of wands, and the page of wands is six, and the magician is five, the star is four, the queen of pentacles in reverse is three, the eight of cups in reverse is two, the four of wands in reverse is the one heaven. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's the ordering of the heavens in this specific reading, and those also correspond to the chakras. So the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the navel chakra. The fourth would be the heart chakra. The third would be the throat chakra. The second would be the third eye chakra, and the number one position would be the crown chakra. All right, so that kind of just is
Yeah.
how the reading is structured. And then these cards below essentially signify just the main theme of the reading. All right, so does that kind of make sense?
So far, I mean, it's all new to me, so
Okay.
you might have to remind me, but it's okay. Just keep going. Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the sharing and I'll just kind of show the individual cards.
Okay, wait, let me tell it back.
Sure.
So you have Christ in the center, and then you have to my left, you have the heavenly realm, and to my right, you have the earthly realm of Christ, right? Right and left of Christ. And then the top row of cards. Oh, now see, I had it and I just forgot it.
So the top row of cards kind of like signifies what that divine earthly and heavenly family are calling forth out of.
Okay.
The query or the reader.
Right. And then the second row is the chakra.
It corresponds to the chakras and the seven
heavens.
Right.
Okay.
So what are the lessons from the heavens? And you can access those. I meditate through the chakra system. So I enter into those heavens by meditating from within the chakras.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
And then the bottom three would be just kind of the main theme of the whole reading.
Right. So on this left-hand side here, this would be the hidden card would be the theme, kind of the theme for the top row. The right hand would be for the bottom. And then the kind of the manifest one is kind of the overall theme that connects. All right.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the screen share here and I'll just show each individual card kind of in their order. So if you can keep that in mind. So we'll start off with kind of one of the key themes here, which is the Page of Pentacles.
Should I write notes?
Well, I'll send you. I've got notes. I'll send you.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Okay. So the Page of Pentacles, like in this reading, I kind of take this to be so can represent the pentacle can represent spiritual and material abundance, right? But I actually saw this card as kind of signifying the good news of the kingdom. All right. And so
which is one of abundance, actually.
Yeah, one of like the earth renewed, right? The age to come, right? And this is kind of the page is the messenger of that. So he's carrying this good news. And so I'm going to just kind of leave that and we can kind of discuss that. I'm going to quickly describe these and then we can kind of go through that. So in the position of the Christ candle, right? I got the moon card in reverse.
Okay.
And that can be a negative card. It can represent the unconscious. It can represent a lot of different things, but this can be kind of a dark card when it's in reverse. But I felt like what I was actually being asked to do was to go into the luminous depths. That's kind of what I heard when I was doing the reading, was go into the luminous depths. And so I'll just kind of I'll just give the phrase and then what it kind of signified to me, then to move on to the next card. So go into the luminous depths of sublime wonder. And this is the light of the subconscious, right? So that's where the journey begins, where heaven meets earth. Go to the luminous depths. Let me just do one thing here. Meeting. It's okay. Just that my screen blur kind of makes it harder to see the cards, but we'll go. So the next one in the position of the Holy Spirit candle is the King of Swords in reverse. Now the swords kind of represent the world of the mind and the thoughts. And as a King of Swords in reverse can signify like somebody who's harsh with their thoughts, who has power, but wields the power of the mind inappropriately. But from the luminous depths, I was negating that negation and seeing that this is also the king who has mastered letting go of his thoughts. Right. So become the master of letting the mind go. A king who masters his thoughts is not captive to them.
Right.
So the next one is in the position of the Mary candle, right? And this one is the Ace of Wands, and that can signify inspiration. And so in reverse, it can signify a lack of inspiration, but we're looking again through the luminous depth. So here we embrace inspiration and what will emerge from the luminous depths. So the inspiration also comes from below. The subterranean forces are just as important as what comes from above. The inspiration joined from above with the inspiration joined from below.
Okay.
The next one that read was in the position of the Saint Michael, the Archangel Michael candle, right? And this one is the Empress, and this was upright, right? And so, and Michael kind of to me signifies how heaven is contending for you, right? Mm-hmm. Or how what heaven is contending for, because he's fighting the devil in that candle, right? And so heaven contends for the revelation of created Sophia. So she has 12 stars on her head. She's, in a sense, she represents to me the created Sophia that we talk about so often, right? And so created Sophia is the finite, ever outstretching good beyond good and evil, right? So she's the good beyond good and evil. She's the part of creation that is untouched by evil. Mm-hmm. And so heaven is contending to see her revealed.
Right.
The next one I got in the position of the St. Jude candle is the Fool in reverse.
In reverse.
Right. And so this is kind of the message I got from that is the fool who dances in the luminous depths is the same fool who dances in the radiant day. Mm. And so carefree, the fool traverses the house of trembling. So he's not any different in the night as he is in the day. He's the same carefree fool. And that's kind of, I think, the fool to me is oftentimes the inner soul of the magician card, the inner reality of the magician. So the magician and the fool are the same person.
Yeah. They do things lightly.
Yes. Yeah. And they're kind of in the middle of danger and don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And don't even care. And they're just fine. So here in the position of the guardian angel candle, so what is being protected, right, is the world in reverse, right? And so here from the luminous depths, the cosmos arises anew. And the luminous depths accompanies the world beyond the omega point in infinite fruitfulness, right? So this is the world that expands because it's always connected to the depths from which it arises, right? So I see this as the new creation card, but it's the kind of the still pools and the still infinite waters of the depths that are the waters of life of the new creation.
Right.
Okay. And then we have in the position of the family candle or the hand of God or mighty ponderosa, we have the 8 of Wands again reversed. So there's a ton of reversed cards in this reading. So we have the 8 of Wands reversed. So when inspiration emerges from the luminous depths, canonically release it and it will remain. So inspiration is not something we can hold on to. Do not cling tightly to inspiration. It operates in perfect freedom. The spirit respires where it will. And so you will get inspiration from the depths, but you don't have to worry about remembering it.
Right.
Because it's already there. Right. So sometimes when you get those really flash ideas that you don't even have time to write down, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. Yeah. And that led to the theme for that reading, which was the driving theme for that section of the reading is the Hierophant in reverse. All right. And so here I'm sensing, draw forth the luminous depths of the tradition in service of the good news of the kingdom. And so apocalypse, the Church of John, right? So the Church of John concept that Tomberg uses in the magician card.
Yeah.
The inner heart of the church
yeah.
has to be revealed, right?
Yeah.
And so you draw that forth in service of the gospel. So the hidden depths of the tradition. All right. Next, we're going to move to where the heavens and chakras correspond. So the 7th heaven, the lowest heaven, where heaven and earth meet, and the root chakra, right? Or the first chakra. So 7th heaven, first chakra is the 6 of Wands, and that usually is a signifier of victory, right?
Okay.
And so I'm going to go ahead and just read the notes here. Emerge victorious from the sublime house of trembling. The luminous depths crowns your mind and will with vitality. So wands represent will and energy, and the kind of, it represents the will and the energy. And you see the garlands here upon the will and upon the mind. And so you emerge victorious from the luminous or the sublime house of trembling, because the luminous depths is where fear and wonder are one and the same.
Yeah. Okay.
And so do not fear the wilderness, for in it echoes Christ's triumphal procession. Right. The next, so in the sixth heaven, which is the heaven of devotion, is the sacral chakra, right? And so this is where devotion is expressed. Memory will empower you to draw forth the innocent will of youth from the luminous depths. Remember who you were when you were young and you had all the energy. That part of yourself is never left. You remember it, right? And so it reminded me of, I'm going to go ahead and read this. I'll go ahead and open that up to, it reminded me of Isaiah chapter 40, the last verses in Isaiah 40, which were, give me a second here. So Isaiah 40, 30 and 31, even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted. But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. So anyway, so if we get into the fifth heaven, which is the heaven of gnosis or inner knowledge, corresponds to the solar plexus or the gut chakra, right? Or the navel chakra, however, there's a bunch of different ways to look at that. We got the magician.
Oh, nice.
So the magician and the fool were in corresponding position with each other, which is interesting. But the magician was upright. So from the luminous depths, the magician imagines heaven's limitless possibilities, because he's pointing to the heavens with his wand, and realizes them on earth. And he rules and he plays with all the suits. So there's the cup, the swords, the cup, swords, wands, and pentacle is on the table, and he plays with those in this infinite dance. So that's kind of what's above his head. And it brings about abundance, right? So true gnosis actualizes the kingdom. Right. So it's the magician to actualize the kingdom.
Yeah.
Okay. In the fourth position, which is the heart chakra or the heaven of courage.
Is the navel chakra intuition, would you say? Okay.
Yes. Inner knowledge or gnosis.
Right.
Intuition.
Yeah. Okay.
So the fourth heaven is the heaven of courage, corresponds to the heart chakra, right? We get the star card. And in the wondrous night of the luminous depths, consciousness returns to itself, nourishes the senses, and the hope of heaven calls the heart to courage. So this is an interesting card. So the one star is reflected in the seven stars, right? So it oftentimes is taken to represent the seven chakras or the seven heavens. Right. I see that. And it's manifestation of the one heaven. And you have water being poured out to the water and then on the land, and it branches in 5 directions. So it's illumining the senses and consciousness returning to itself. Right. The heart has a knowing all of its own. Yeah. All right. So in the third heaven, which is the heaven of counsel, corresponding to the throat chakra, we have the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, which that can signify a very materialistic and greedy woman. But we're negating that. All right. So from the luminous depths, the soul draws forth the abundant riches of the gospel. So I'm seeing that Page of Pentacles is kind of carrying the message of the gospel. Queen, likewise. Right. And so in Christ, the hidden mysteries of the wisdom are revealed by his bride. Yeah. And then we got another negative cup, which is the 8 of Wands, or 8 of Cups in reverse, right? Typically means disappointment, walking away. But we're negating that again. In the luminous depths, fear no emptiness. All these cups are empty, but the water's still all around. Fear no emptiness. The fullness is the journey itself. Nice. So in the luminous depths, the subconscious emotions radiate austere richness. Yeah. And then in the first heaven, which is the heaven of wisdom corresponding to the crown chakra, we get again another reversal, which is the Three of Wands. So behold the horizon of the luminous depths, break the surface and venture boldly within. So this journey in the light and journey in the night share the same destination, which is the house of the luminous lady, or Lady Wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so this is typically like Three of Wands is typically like setting out on a journey or planning for a journey.
Okay.
Or embarking on a journey. All right. And then the theme of that, the reading in the heavens, is the Knight of Pentacles in reverse. Right. So courageously take the gospel into the depths.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's the reading.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. So it just felt like, kind of learning how to use these tools like responsibly, because a lot of times they're used very recklessly, but they arise out of kind of that medieval Christian world and are kind of archetypical of like our inner experience and our inner world. So drawing those out and kind of just allowing the story to emerge.
Right.
And then kind of, in a sense, listening what the spirit is saying in through what the cards are saying.
So remind me, what was it that cued you into this being like an inversion of what you would normally perceive? Like what made you think that it was about the luminous depths? Was the moon card, right? Upside down.
It was, but I mean, so that specific day, so I meditate through the seven heavens, one each day.
Yeah.
Right. And so yesterday was the heaven of wonder. But I was thinking about wonder in light of the sublime, right, which is wonder in its difference, right? Which is not like wonder is not terror necessarily. Like it's just the sublime depths of wonder. Like that sense when you're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and you're looking over and you feel how ominous it is, but it's beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
As I was thinking about wonder in that register, because the heaven of wonder, actually in the Greek and Hebrew, and I pull that out of Isaiah 11:2, right? It refers to fear. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah.
But fear oftentimes is kind of can mean something negative, but its positive identity is wonder, right? And so I was thinking about that throughout the day yesterday, and then as we went into meditation, that was the moon card was the first card pulled,
right?
And it was just like, oh, that's what I need to meditate on, right?
Yeah.
Is the luminous depths that are the dazzling darkness, right, where the darkness has been purged of its evil and what remains is something radiant, still unseen.
And it when I think about the moon in regards to like George MacDonald's writings, it's that feminine silver veiled light that changes the shape of things, right? That makes things look like, I mean, it's often in the moonlight that Anodos sees something that he thinks is a real person. And then it turns out if he looks straight at it, it's just a rock, right? Or a tree or something. And which is George's way of critiquing the critic, right? The person who looks straight at the thing, who hyper focuses on the thing, and they lose the actual shape of it, because everything, like this gets back to that card that you were talking about Sophia, right? That
the Empress?
Which one was that?
The Empress card.
The Empress card, right? That that everything is shouting forth this shape that is well, it's a human shape. It's the image, right? The image of God, which is the human shape.
Yeah.
And so when Enodo sees in the light of the moon, when he sees things as human, and then he stares straight at them and loses that shape, and they become just a hunk of stone, piece of matter, right? They've actually lost their true meaning.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, kind of like that apophatic exercise of negation is it creates the space where you can see, right? So when you evacuate the day of all its light and you have the night, you can see the stars at great distance, right? So it's a different kind of perceiving.
I also feel like when you showed me those upside down cards as inverted, because I'm not familiar with how the cards work, so I didn't know that there was a meaning to whether they were upright or upside down. But it's interesting because for some time now it's become really apparent to me that there's this, well, it's on earth as it is in heaven, right? So there's this mirroring effect that's happening where the real way of seeing everything is upside down, like that's and that became clear to me also in Fantastes, okay? When the wooden men are beating up the little girl who's trying to collect butterfly wings, right? And the only way that the knight can stop them is by turning them upside down on their heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then when they're upside down, they can't move. I mean, you could just take it as a silly fairy tale thing, and okay, so now he's immobilized these things, right? But I always understood that whole analogy, that whole story as his righteous anger against Calvinists and the freedom that they want to take away from children of God who are collecting butterfly wings and building their own wings, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I think it is that is because what these monsters do is they don't eat the little girl and they don't chop her up in little pieces, but they walk all over her.
Oh, okay.
Right? So they humiliate her. They destroy her soul, and then when he flips them upside down. So this is me interpreting George's work, and George would say, "That's a cool meaning." But when he flips them upside down, they can't move because now they see the world aright. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not the same one that they live in. And they don't know what to do. So they're immobilized.
Yeah. It kind of, when you're talking about that in this reading, kind of, I'm surprised that the card didn't show up, but it's definitely kind of energetically connected to this reading is the Hanged Man.
I was thinking about the Hanged Man the whole time.
Yeah.
Actually thought about it in connection to the Fool.
They're kind of the same guy.
Yeah, because upside down, the Fool has his feet on the earth. But that earth is the sky now, right? Upside down. You know what I'm saying? And the heaven is the earth upside down.
Yeah.
And that I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's more right.
Learning to see from I think the way that that the high priestess in Tomberg's meditation on the tarot talks about kind of the reflectivity of consciousness. So if you can imagine like light or fire above and water below and the air in between, and then the earth kind of surrounding the water is like kind of an image of consciousness. So you have air, fire, air, water, and earth. That light of consciousness reflects off of the surface of the waters and becomes the awareness in the air, the world of the thoughts, like the mental world. And so there's this reflectivity of consciousness, which produces these mirror images. So like even when our eyes take in an image, when it's projected in the back of our eye, it's actually reversed and our brain flips it. right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So we actually see reality in reverse
Yeah.
whenever we see anything at all.
Hmm.
And so I think that there's kind of this interplay of reversal that was certainly like dominant throughout this reading. Um,
Yeah. Well, that
and
struck me actually. That really struck me
yeah, because
because,
then usually reversals would be generally negative. They're not always negative, but they can generally be negative.
but that wouldn't, that like, see, you, from what I understand anyway, you took the reversal as an indicator to reverse the whole experience. You
Right.
weren't just reversing the parts, right?
Yeah.
You were looking at the parts in connection to the whole.
Yeah.
And and I think that, to do a, one dimensional reading of that, you wouldn't look at the whole, you would look at the parts, and then you would be able to project some kind of negativity onto the inverted cards. But as a whole, and I think that's the proper way to do it, you're seeing things actually as they are, as they
Yeah.
really are, like the Fool card,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think that that's like, and I like the fool and like the connection between the fool and the magician. Like I've said, I see them as the
Mhm.
same person, the one and the zero, the
Yeah, and they
identity and this difference. And it's just
and
the what the fool is internally, the magician is externally.
right, and they're actually in that position. They're completely connected to each other, like their heads are touching.
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
They have one mind.
they're one mind. Yeah. and
Yeah.
and I think in order to be the magician, you have to be the Fool upside down too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With your feet, um like, I don't know if I'm saying this in any coherent manner, but his feet are in the heavens because he's upside down,
Hmm.
but the heavens are the earth.
Right.
See,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's all
Interesting.
inverted, right? Like, it's all, to me anyway.
Yeah. Well, and like I think like if we go to the Empress card, and I'm working on a story, I'll have to share the story with you when it's done.
Hmm.
So I've been thinking in terms of like Jordan Daniel Wood's book on the whole mystery of Christ talks
Yeah.
about Christ as the identity of identity and difference. And I see the Empress in that created Sophia, creaturely Sophia, um, kind of register. But beneath her is the identity and difference, right? Of good and evil. But good and evil, like when Jesus is called good teacher, he says, you don't even know the meaning of good,
Hmm.
right? So, like, there's a certain kind of good that isn't altogether good, and a certain kind of evil that is simply a good that is negated improperly, right?
Hmm.
And so, in this story, I will have, created Sophia, but then the two ladies beneath her are good and evil, right? So echoing the tree of knowledge. And um and those like both have to go through the domain of negation to attain to the Empress, which is created Sophia in her untouchable goodness, like the goodness that cannot be impaired or damaged by any evil or any distorted good,
Hmm.
right? And so I think that's where Archangel Michael contends. So heaven is contending for the revelation of the sons of God, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so in a sense, like you can see the Empress as kind of one aspect or the outward manifestation of the church. I see the high priestess as the inner manifestation, which would be the card prior, right? The number 2 card
Hmm.
in the sequence. And so it's like that Sophianic vision of the world that invites us not only to look into the light, but also to look into the darkness and
Right.
find that both are good. Day and night are both good.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
both have their perils, you know. Um, but anyway, yeah, I just think that that's where, and the Hierophant card that's hidden um, is in reverse, and I think that that's kind of where I think that kind of the practice of Christian mysticism or Christian hermeticism can draw out the inner depths of the tradition, right? Because the
Absolutely.
tradition's got its problems, right? But there's something powerful within it that's hidden underneath the surface that we're supposed to draw out, that wisdom calls us to draw out.
Yes. Yeah, and that's becoming more and more apparent to me all the time.
Yeah.
But it has to be it has to be drawn out in a way that is see, this is the thing that has been going through my mind recently, well, for quite a while now. I have this audiobook of Meister Eckhart's sayings, and that's all it does. Is just it's not a work of his writings. It's just his things he said.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, it just kind of plays, and it's, for me, it's meditative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just listening to it. And almost all of them are inversions,
Mm-hmm.
and almost all of them are in that same sense riddles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I realized listening to it was that the further down you go into the mystical aspect of Christianity, the more you sound like that.
Yeah.
Right. And then I was watching. So I actually said to Jess one day, I said, eventually you just sound like you're talking in riddles, right? And I remember listening to or reading Meister Eckhart a few years ago, and I wasn't really. I thought that it sounded like, I don't know, like it didn't seem like it meant anything. Like it sounded like someone just being silly, or
Mm-hmm.
you could even call them platitudes in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then the longer I journeyed, the more profound the things that Meister Eckhart were saying became to me,
Yeah.
right? Where I could actually, where there was almost a sense that I was being dragged down below the surface of something,
Mm-hmm.
like a physical sense,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was watching this conversation with Zevi Slavin, and they were talking. He was talking to a guy named Dov Elbaum. I've watched this conversation like incessant number of times because there's something about it that it just keeps. I just keep benefiting from it. But in that conversation, they were talking about how the Israelites, when they made the golden calf, Dov Elbaum makes the point that they hadn't forgotten God. It was that they didn't want that God. They wanted one, and they said they wanted one who could basically show them the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who could go before them with the
Mm-hmm.
words out of scripture. But it's like something that could show them the way, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were in the wilderness and they were lost and they didn't know where to go and they didn't know what to do. And so they needed something they could see that, and the God that they had, when they asked him his name, he said, I am that I am.
Mm-hmm.
And then Zevi said, oh, a God that riddles. And Dov said, yeah, that's right. They didn't want a God that riddles. Because what it does is it drives you into the macro microcosmic reciprocity between you and the divine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're caught in, interestingly enough, and this came to my mind in some of the conversations with Jess, you're in an hourglass
Mm-hmm.
shape. That's the shape that I see, right?
Yeah.
Of the micro macro divine, heaven and earth, all that stuff. You're in this hourglass shape, and what runs through the hourglass is time, which is like super fascinating to me. I don't know if, like, I would love to know the origin of the hourglass because it seems to be very mystical to me,
It
actually.
is. It really is.
Yeah.
I I've got a question for you. as kind of the Grail Country resident. Let's call you the George MacDonald enthusiast.
I don't know everything about him, that's for
I
sure,
know, I know.
but
So this would, and maybe you can draw off of MacDonald or anything else, but what do you think the relationship is between spiritual imagination and inversion?
well, I think again, see the hourglass shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a long time ago, I had a conversation with some people, and we were talking about, you know, the idea of Christ being God is that the infinite becomes finite, and everyone's just like, that's impossible. How's that impossible?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized in that conversation that the imagination is infinite, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it moves out in this like ever expanding shape for me,
Mm-hmm.
and um and I do tend to like I'm starting to realize that I do tend to see things in shapes, like in
Mm-hmm.
form of shape,
Yeah.
and so it moves out in this ever expanding shape, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
a funnel in a sense, and that and in that funnel runs down into the finite. Okay,
Yeah.
so and it's true. Like if you're creative in any way, let's say you're a painter
Mm-hmm.
or a poet or a writer, which and you have this infinite number of ideas, right? Things to choose from. And at some point, if you want to satisfy that creative impulse, you have to choose something from the infinite. And when you do that, you bring it down into the finite and you make it finite,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
See?
Interesting.
And that's how it happens. That's what the spirit, that's what the imagination is, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
It is that.
Yeah.
It's
I was
that.
thinking of in T.S. Eliot's Four Quartets, there's an epigraph at at the very beginning of the poem, just a quote from Heraclitus that says the way up is the way down, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So ascent and descent share the same motion, the same path. And it reminds me of what Jesus says in John chapter 2, where he says, truly, truly, I say to you, you will see the heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man.
Right.
And so, to go back to the fool here and the magician,
Yeah.
right? The same one that has his head in the heavens has his head in the depths. So the
Yeah.
consciousness is kind of present in both places.
Mm-hmm.
And the light of heaven and the luminous light of the depths are being pulled together and meet in the earth.
Yeah.
Right. And so I see the imagination. You have to be able to not just state a case positively, but you need to explore the minor chords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the music is a little bit murkier.
Yeah. And like, okay, so I mean, I totally resonate with that because a lot of my poetry was only that, like for many, many, many years. And it was perhaps a way of processing difficult times in my life. I don't know. But I couldn't, for the life of me, write a happy poem. It
Mm-hmm.
was impossible. It didn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
And if I shared some of my poetry with family members, it brought me great joy to write the poem. Okay, oddly
Mm-hmm.
enough,
Mm-hmm.
and there was always a sense of reconciliation with something once it was written. But to share it with someone, they were depressed. They were just like, "That's terrible. That's so dark," right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to um, like I went through a period of time where I wasn't sure if I should write poetry anymore. Like I thought, am I just dabbling in darkness here? Like what's going what's going on? Right. But at the same time, I couldn't help but write the poetry. And so I did.
Mm-hmm.
And And it's just been, I don't know, Jed, it's just a theme in my life, right? Like, I have this weird, like happiness, optimism, but all I ever talk about is death and dying, right? Like it's these, and so when I see the fool and the magician, like in the position that they're in right there, I'm just like, that's it, you know, like that's, and they're both really happy if you look at them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's just something about our experience, and this is why I said over and over again in the Job series with Jess, we have to be willing to walk out into the landscape of pain and suffering. And I think this is also what Wendell Berry is talking about in that poem when he says, "Go dark." Right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to go walk in the dark, go dark. Like don't take a flashlight.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the things I learned through depression, through the actual experience of depression and all that kind of thing, was that the only way through it was to actually embrace it. Right? Like it was just, it was not going to move out of my way. I had to go through it, and I had to pick it up and look at it and figure it out. What is this thing? Right?
Yeah.
And it's very, very dark. But I
Yeah.
got a lot of light when I did that thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I actually did it with a friend who committed suicide. He died, and I was really upset by that. And I didn't really know at the time how to deal with it. And so I was not well at the time actually either. I was very unwell mentally. And I decided he had been living with us. And so I had a bunch of his things here. And so I took his boots out and I put them at the door, and I hung his coat on the hook by the door, and I put his books out, and, you know, his glasses and whatever personal items, as if he was here. Right. And my husband came home from work and he said, "Why are River's boots why did you hang his coat?" And I said, "I just need it there. Just leave it for me for a little while. Okay. Because I have to try something." Because my first impulse was that I wanted to commit suicide. As soon as I heard about his suicide, I wanted to do it too. Okay. And I had already done that. Like I already tried that twice. Right. So I was like, and I was fresh out of the loony bin. So it wasn't a good situation. And I was trying to save my life, Jed. I was trying to save my life. Right. Because I really had that impulse to just jump. Right. And so I had all that stuff out, and I just, for like, I don't know, my husband said to me at one point, "How long are you going to do this? How long are you going to cry?" And I said, "As long as it takes." And I just went into it. I just went full on in to the grief. Right. And it took me about 7 days, and then I was good. And it never bothered me again.
Wow.
And I put it all away. I put his boots away. I put his coat away. I put his books away. Right. And my husband came home from work and he said, "Oh, you're done?" And I said, "Yeah, and I'm good now." You know?
Yeah. Interesting.
So, and you know, it's not the kind of thing that I would just say to anybody, go dark.
Yeah.
Because it's really not for everybody. It depends, right?
Yeah. I think at some point, like we all, like if you want to grow and mature, you have to be willing to go there. But you should only go there when you know it's time.
Well, for me, going there meant living.
Yeah.
Which, this is the other thing, right? Like I keep getting hit in the face with all these inversions. Like if I hadn't have done that in River's case, for example, I could have died. I had to go dark. Right?
Yeah.
Like how crazy
Well,
is that?
there's a sense too, like I think, just kind of hearing about, we've talked about River before, but just kind of reflecting on that story reminds me kind of here, the star card. And if we just kind of stay within the theme, like in a sense, like I see that water, like which can be like emotional fullness, consciousness. It can be kind of a lot of different things. I see this as like Sophia's tears,
Oh yeah.
right? And in her tears, which are our tears,
Mm.
those water the seed of the gospel, and it's
Yes.
the hope of the new world,
Yeah.
right? So the tears have to flow at some
Mhm.
point. And
Yeah.
our tears hold like a promise, even if they're bitter tears, um, they're usually because something precious was lost. But in the kingdom, nothing is lost.
No,
I
that's
think of
right.
like the parable of the dragnet. So Jesus talks about, the dragnet going through and picking up all kinds. Now we say all kinds of fish, but it's just kinds. It picks up
Yeah.
everything. That dragnet
Mhm.
pulls everything, and anything useful that's in that dragnet gets used in the kingdom. So
Mhm.
nothing good is ever lost.
No.
Right. And so the tears are important, and they carry in it the hope of a world as it should be beyond the tears. Right. And
Yeah.
so the tears just become the setting of the luminous depths.
Well, that's how I always understood Jesus wept when he went to Lazarus, right? I understood that verse, Jesus wept, as him seeing the hope and yet weeping because we're still in the dark, right?
Right.
And so in a sense, we're like, he's weeping at the pain that we suffer as a result of our own ignorance, which is
Mm-hmm.
not even our fault. Like the whole thing is just, it's just one huge story of compassion, right?
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, I've got some calls coming in that I need
Yeah.
to
It's good.
get to, but I just wanted to thank you first of all, Shari, for kind of joining. What I'll do is I'll send this over to Nate, and we'll see if we want to put it up on Grail Country. I think this will be kind of a cool exercise for Grail Country.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Um,
fun. It was
but
fun
I want to
to check
just
it
throw
out.
you one last question,
Hmm.
since you've already kind of talked about the whole, like how, like if you were to kind of look back, and I can reshare the screen here, just at the sense of the whole, like I would like to hear just kind of your thoughts on the whole as a way to kind of close out our little
Okay.
discussion here. So let me go ahead and where is the start share? We'll go back into PowerPoint and share, and there we go.
Mm. There's a lot of things going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the first, I'll just I'll just give you my very immature and um immature and amateur reading. Um, so I see the world and the Page of Pentacles. I see them together.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or the
and I
page of
also
wands, you mean? Or the page of pentacles down at the bottom?
the one at the bottom
Okay, so the
with
world
the
and the page of
with the
pentacles.
world in his hands.
Mhm,
Okay. And he's also a young boy, right? A page
mhm,
is like a child, which I
mhm,
think is really, really important to keep in mind. And the world. So the world has to be understood upside down for the same reason that the fool is upside down. Okay.
mhm,
And and then the child can set it aright and give it back to you. Okay. That's
mhm.
how I see this. Um,
Like, unless you become as the child, you cannot enter the kingdom.
there's that for sure. Yeah.
Mhm,
Um, but see, the child, we tend to see that world as the world card at turned up a right, and we think because it's turned to right, it's right, but actually it's right the way it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the child doesn't have any difficulty with that. Okay. And then I see a lot of emptying
Mm-hmm.
as a picture, like the canonic aspect of this whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the emptying is also in regards to power,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you notice that?
Yeah. Like power can't, like the Eight of Wands is a very like it's like powerful and quick communication
Yeah.
or inspiration, right? And like I think that there's like, what is that, the 38 special song, Hold On Loosely,
Yeah.
Don't Let Go,
Yeah.
because if you
Yeah.
cling too tightly you're going to lose control.
Right.
Right, it's
Exactly that.
like none of this stuff can be grasped. You have to have an open hand.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to let it go,
Yeah.
because in the grasping and the clinging to it, you stifle it, you choke out its life.
Right. Right. And then there's also an aspect to this, because there's so much upside down, which I think is great, because this is probably why I referred back to Meister Eckhart and the idea of riddling and the
Mm-hmm.
inversion, because something that I've been like hyper aware of recently is just this divine inversion of everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um and but the upside down, the emptying, there's also a sense of levity, okay,
Mm-hmm.
accompanying that, because you would imagine that all these upside down cars would fall on their heads, but they're not falling on their heads. They're right.
They're
They're
floating.
floating. They're floating up on their new ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so I get a sense of levity from all of that.
Right.
And and yeah, and the Empress and the Star and the Magician and the Child really stand out to me, actually.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that they're the most important cards here, but they're only understood in light of all the inversion around them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Interesting. So maybe what we could say is, don't take yourself too seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and engage seriously in play when
Mm-hmm.
you're in the upside down.
Yeah, I mean that's the Magician, though. That is
Right.
the Magician, right?
Right.
He's holding everything lightly. You know, that's why I said the other day, like in one of the live streams, you know, I really tire of people saying I'm left, or he's left, or she's a lefty, or these people are far right, and just
Mm-hmm.
this right left language all the time. It's it feels like it's cleaving me in two when I hear it. That's how it feels.
Uh-huh.
And so I
Mm-hmm.
combine the two terms to say, why don't we just be light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Light. And I think that like, just think about that, Jed.
Mm-hmm.
Light as in levity, light as in radiant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, that's what I wish for.
I like that. And I think that's a great place for us to go ahead and just say thank you for tuning in.
Mhm.
Shari, this has been wonderful. So hopefully we'll do maybe some more of this from time to time, because I
That'd be
think that
fun.
there's some great stories in the cards. And actually they're a great way to write stories, by the way.
Man,
If you're in
yeah.
writer's block, it's not a
Well, I've
bad
had
way to
writer's
do
block for about 61 years. No, I'm just kidding. Close.
it.
But yeah, no, that was fun, Jed. I would love to do that again with you.
Yeah,
I like that.
fantastic. I'm going
Mhm.
to go ahead and stop the recording here. Thanks everyone for
Yeah.
tuning in.